It just costs too much money. In this episode, I want to talk about overpriced recruiting services. Did you know there are hundreds, if not thousands, of recruiting services all over the country? Many of them charge anywhere from $1,500 to $4,000 for their recruiting help. Now, I'm all for making money and earning a profit, but who can afford that? Nobody. Who wants to pay that? Nobody. And if you pay that kind of money, that's kind of crazy. That's a lot of money to pay. When you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, that's like putting a down payment on a car. When you go to You know what you're getting when you buy a car. You know that you're going to get the keys, it's going to be a really nice car, you're going to drive it around town, be able to show it off to your friends and family, you're going to be able to get back and forth to work and wherever else you got to do. So you got something there. But these recruiting services want you to put that kind of money down. They want you to pay $1,500, $3,000, $2,500, $4,000, $4,500. They want you to put down that kind of money for college recruiting help, and more than the average family cannot afford that. Now, you have student athletes. You have a lot of student athletes who get under-recruited. They're underexposed, under-recognized by college programs every year. Many of them are very good. And they want the help. They want the help of a recruiting service. But when you got families who come from a single-family home, or maybe one parent is working and the other one might be working part-time, what are we talking about here? You know, we're supposed to be helping student athletes, but you're charging thousands of dollars to families who don't have it. So then what kind of athletes are you trying to get? Are you trying to just sign up anyone who can pay the fee? Then what are you really doing as a recruiting service? This is why one of the reasons I think recruiting services get a bad name is because they charge a lot of money, they sign up anyone who can pay, and then they do very little to get student athletes recruited and placed in college. Very little. So this is a problem. This is a huge problem. I don't think you should have to pay the equivalent of a down payment on a car to get into college. I know there's supposed to be value in that. If you're paying those kind of dollars for recruiting help, I understand that, and that the end result, you're going to get possibly a scholarship or a strong financial package to go to college. I understand that. I get that. It makes sense. But when you think about it, no one is going to actually have it in their hand. When you pay money to a recruiting service, you're not going to actually have what you paid for in your hand, like with a car. You've got the steering wheel in your hand. You've got the car keys in your hand. You can sit in the car. Recruiting service, you're just paying money and hoping that something happens. And you're paying thousands of dollars, hoping that some results take place here. You're hoping for the best. Did you know there are recruiting services run by individuals who have never played in college? There are recruiting services run by individuals who were never recruited to play in college. And so they're charging overpriced fees. Part of the reason, I believe, is because they never experienced this. They never experienced how it is to be recruited. And so I think they want to charge this kind of money, not knowing what it's like to be a real athlete. I mean, you have your players who play in high school, and then you got to be able to take your talents to college, or your high school career kind of meant nothing. There's no validation to your high school career if you didn't go to college and play ball, get an education. So you have those who never did any of that. So they don't know what it's like to be recruited. They don't know the experience of going on college visits, meeting with college coaches, getting letters in the mail, phone calls, emails, text messages. They don't know that. You know, back in my day, before we had all of that, it was just the phone. I received 200 phone calls from college coaches. So I was 19 years old at the time. Recruiting didn't work out for me like it was supposed to, but still, barely a year out of high school, the recruiting process worked for me because I ended up getting contacted by hundreds of college programs, and that was an exciting experience, thrilling experience to get a phone call from dozens of college coaches every day who wanted me to come play ball for them. Basically off of the recommendation of someone who saw me play in a basketball game, thought I was good enough to play in college, and gave my name to this company who put me on a list, and I got contacted by all of these schools. So, and then meeting with college coaches, you know, coming to the city I was in at the time, Chicago, and coming to visit with me or want me to come meet them in the city, and we talk about it. That's recruiting. So if you've never experienced recruiting, if you've never experienced it, then you're not going to have the real feeling for what student athletes and parents are going through. Maybe you weren't good enough coming out of high school. So what gives you well, I guess you could have the right, because anyone can start a business, but what makes you an expert in recruiting if you never did it? Now, you could be a coach. You could be a coach and run a recruiting service, a high school coach, club coach, because you help players get recruited. You've experienced that. You've had connections with college coaches. But if you've never played the game and got recruited, or was a coach who was involved in this heavily and deeply, I think you have no credibility. It'd be like someone saying, I'm a dentist, but you have no degree on the wall. You have shabby equipment in your office, but you thought it would be a cool thing to do to be a dentist, but you didn't go to dental school, you have no credentials, nothing to back it up. And so this is what we have with these recruiting services that are run by individuals who have nothing to back up their credentials. They just said they wanted to do it, they want to get into it, they think this is a good thing to do, and they want to charge all of this money to families. Now, I know if a company had came to my dad and he had said, you know, Mr. Woods, we want to help your son get recruited, this is what it costs. So if it was a reasonable price, he would have paid for it without blinking an eye. He would have slapped down the credit card and let's do this. What do we got to do? But if this company had came to them and said, we want $2,000 or $1,500 or whatever into the thousands to help your son get recruited for college, it would have been no way he would have done it. Absolutely not. So Woods Recruiting, you may be thinking, like, well, what does Woods Recruiting charge? What is Woods Recruiting going to do? What is Woods Recruiting? How are we going to fix this problem? I can tell you one thing. We're not going to charge anywhere near $1,000 to help someone who needs our help to get into college. There are thousands of athletes out there who need our help. And we're not going to try to break their bank, break their budget, get them to take out a second mortgage on their home to pay for something like this. We're just not going to do that. We're not going to ask people to do that. We're not going to force people to do that. We're not going to persuade people to do that. It's just not right. I had this conversation a while back with a guy who runs a recruiting service, He's the president. And so I was saying that maybe you should lower your prices so you could work with more student athletes. His response was, it wouldn't be worth it. I'm like, well, it wouldn't be worth it to who? Woods Recruiting, and our team of scouts and recruiting directors, I want to work with every student athlete in the country. There's 1.5 million, if not 2 million high school student athletes who are looking for college recruiting help. A lot of them, 99% of them, are going to need some kind of recruiting assistance. So I want to work with all of those athletes, all of them. So again, the bad rap is where families already believe that recruiting services are going to cost thousands of dollars. That's what they heard, because that's what all of them do. They all charge thousands of dollars. Some of them do absolutely nothing for that money. That's a shame. But we're not going to do that at Woods Recruiting, and I don't think it's the right thing to do. I don't think it's the right thing to do to charge families who really need the help all of this kind of money. Now, there are families who live in affluent communities who could probably afford these kinds of prices. Okay, great, but those numbers are small. Those numbers are small. I want to work with kids, student athletes, players who can actually play in college. I don't want a situation where the family needs our help so much, but we're charging so much money, and then we can't help them and they don't get into college. So obviously, as a business person, you could say, well, they should have paid the money. It's not about that. They don't have the money. So because they don't have the money, we're allowing some student athletes' whole future to be destroyed because they don't have $2,000 to spend on recruiting help. It's crazy. It's crazy. And I came from a middle-class family where both my parents worked. They had very good jobs. We owned our own home. We lived in a very nice community. They could have afforded $2,000, but they weren't going to pay it. They could have afforded it. So it's just, let's think about economics here. Let's think about people. So many recruiting services are so hung up on money, they lose sight of the people. There's thousands of athletes out here in all different parts of the country who need help. That's what we want to do at Woods Recruiting. That's what we're about. And then if we can put money in the pockets of our scouts and our recruiting directors, then we'll do that too. I mean, at the end of the day, this is still a business. We're not going at it for free. I mean, there is a price attached to this. But we're not trying to destroy anyone's dreams because they don't have $2,000. That's just crazy. Every student athlete who wants to play in college, who's good enough to play at the college athletic level, should be given the opportunity to do so. I mean, for me, it did a lot for my entire life to go to college, get an education. And I played professional basketball in South America. That never would have happened if I didn't go to college. You know, I mean, I've been out of the country. You know, that was the first time being out of the country. I mean, I went to Hawaii before that and other places too. But, you know, at a very young age, in my 20s, I'm going out of the country by myself. So I would have never experienced that if I not went to college. And so we've got these student athletes all over the place, everywhere, who want to go to college. It'd be different if they didn't want to go. And there's a lot who don't want to go to college. And that's fine. That's their decision. That's their choice. They want to do something else with their life. But we're talking about student athletes who want to go to college. Okay? Your athletic career is going to end. Mine has been over with for a very long time. But your college education, that degree you earn, is going to last a lifetime. And let me say this. When you get that degree, it's not going to say Division I, Division II, or Division III on it. It's not going to have that. Get your degree. Use athletics as a means to get your education. And then do something with your life to better yourself and make the world a better place. So that's kind of what we're trying to do at Woods Recruiting. And we want to work with every student athlete who can play at the next level. I mean, that's kind of what recruiting services are anyway. We are the eyes and ears for colleges who can't see every student athlete. You know, and they can't. Let's be real here. College coaches cannot recruit every athlete. And then there are times in the year where college coaches cannot even have contact with with high school student athletes. There are times in the year where college coaches can't even leave the campus to recruit. But recruiting services are under no type of limitations. So we want to work with all student athletes, and we don't want to make it a price situation. So think about this, families. When you're out there, you're looking for college recruiting help, there are a lot of recruiting services that charge too much money to do this. They only care about your money. They don't care about you. They don't care about your son or daughter. All they care about is how much can you pay. Some of these recruiting services will get you to pay their fee, and then they will try to sell you something else and something else and something else. They get you hooked in so they can make more money off of you. That's not right. That is ridiculous. So I want to hear what you think about this podcast, because this has been on my mind for a very long time. You know, back in the early days of Woods Recruiting, we charged less than $500 to do what we do. And I was working with, we were signing up sometimes 40 and 50 athletes a month. And we went only for 9 months out of the year. We took the summers off. So we were bringing in that much business. We wanted to work with student athletes, and we had a tremendous success rate. So I want to hear what you think about this podcast. Leave a comment in the comment section below. I want to hear your thoughts and opinion on this topic. It's a very big topic because it will affect the entire industry, but it's an important topic to leave a comment on. Also, feel free to share this on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Those are the big three I use. So share it with your friends on those platforms as well. Let me know what you think. But as always, thanks for listening to the Woods Recruiting Podcast, and I will talk to you again real soon.